Alright, so now we're in our last video for this chapter. We're getting into the thoracic cage. So let's go ahead and talk about the components that make up this thoracic cage, and we'll also talk about the components of the sternum, and then get into the rib and rib classifications. So the thoracic cage is made up of mainly a couple components. We have the sternum, and then we have 12 pairs of ribs along with their costal cartilages. So the cartilage is going to connect the ribs to the sternum. All of these ribs are articulated with the 12 thoracic vertebrae in the back. And the whole point is to protect the heart and lungs. So let's take a look here. So we're going to look at the sternum here, talk about that in some detail, and then we'll kind of bounce back and forth between a couple slides in the front and then back to this one to talk about the ribs. So here's our sternum. Our sternum has three main parts: the manubrium, the body, which is this long section, and the xiphoid process, which is this little triangular piece down here. There are a couple notches, the jugular notch and the clavicular notch in the manubrium, and then this where we connect the manubrium to the body is the sternal angle. With the ribs, we have our 12 pairs. The ribs articulate in the back here with the thoracic vertebra, and then here in the front we see the costal cartilages connecting the ribs to the sternum, which forms our breastbone. We also see up here the clavicle or the collarbones articulating with the manubrium of the sternum as well. So here's our typical rib. There's some main components to it. We have the body, we have the costal groove. Now the costal groove and the angle are going to be so that we can attach the intercostal muscles, which will help us with breathing. And then over here is where we're going to see the articulating components of the rib when it comes to connecting to the vertebra. We have the tubercle, the neck, and the head. The tubercle and the head are going to be the components that actually directly articulate with that vertebra. So we can classify the ribs based on how they connect and if they connect to the sternum. So most ribs are going to connect to the sternum via their costal cartilage in some way or form, either directly or indirectly. We can have two main classifications of the ribs. There's the true ribs and the false ribs, and then the false ribs we can actually break down into two more categories. So let's go ahead and talk about those. We have true ribs, which are numbers 1 through 7. These guys are going to attach directly to the sternum with their costal cartilage. The false ribs are the rest of them, 8 through 12. But 8 through 10, these ones do have costal cartilage that will attach to the rib that is just above it. So we have an indirect connection to the sternum with ribs 8, 9, and 10. 11 and 12, though, actually don't connect to the sternum at all. These are sometimes called floating ribs. So you may see, depending on what resource you're using to study, you may see ribs being classified as true or false. You might also see them classified as true, false, and floating. If we go back, we can see these guys in action. So here's ribs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and we see that their costal cartilage takes them right to the sternum. But 8, 9, and 10 actually connect up above. 10 connects to 9, 9 connects to 8, 8 connects to 7, rather than a direct connection to the sternum. And then 11 and 12 back here don't actually connect at all. They're free floating.